You're looking at scenes from downtown Cairo where thousands of protesters have amassed to protest, moved by the military there to shut down the government. It's a familiar scene, of course. We'll see how things develop here. This is the News Hub. I'm Michael Casey, and we're joined to discuss this by Matt Bradley, who's coming to us straight from Cairo. Welcome, Matt.
Hi, thanks.
So what's happened here? I mean, we've had, this is the first really big protest for some time. What's going on?
Well, the protesters are coming out here and they're casting aside a lot of their ideological differences and uniting against the military. And what this is showing is that the Muslim Brotherhood, who was the largest group to call out the protest today, they can actually rally some of the more liberal forces behind them and oppose the military. And that's important because the Muslim Brotherhood's presidential candidate, Mohamed Morsi, is poised to declare victory. He's already declared victory, but he's poised to be called the victor of a presidential race later this week. The biggest challenge facing him is going to be confronting the military.
Okay, that indeed is expected that he will be called, because we know, of course, that another candidate, a former regime loyalist, is claiming victory as well, correct?
That's right. Ahmed Shafiq, who's a former Air Force general, and he was Hosni Mubarak's last appointment for prime minister. He, in a press conference this morning, declared that he was also the victor. By similar margins to what Mohamed Morsi did. So we're on a collision course for a very uncomfortable confrontation between these two candidates and between the Egyptian public and the military, who's been guiding this whole transition.
But you mentioned earlier your expectations that Morsi will be declared the victor at some point.
That's my expectations, but I've learned not to have so many expectations when it comes to Egyptian politics.
Right. Now, but this, you said this was unique, a bringing together of different ideological forces here, and the Muslim Brotherhood, of course, important that it present this image perhaps to the world. So who's down there in the streets? What sort of factions are we talking about? I mean, presumably not the regime loyalists factions, but who's represented in these protests?
The people who are down there in the streets are mostly from the two main groups are going to be the Islamists, which are represented mostly by the Muslim Brotherhood, which had a plurality in parliament before that parliament was dismissed by a court order a couple of weeks ago, and the Salafi group, the Al-Noor party, which represents a more hardline version of Islam. And then on the other side are the more sort of secular, liberal-minded protesters, and these are the people who were instrumental in overthrowing Mubarak in February 2011, and they're represented by the 6th of April Youth Movement and a couple of other revolutionary youth groups. And all of them are commingling in the square and pushing for the same goal, which is for the military to withdraw the constitutional declaration that had diminished the powers of the president and taken the constitutional drafting committee into the fold of the military and given the military complete control over much of the operation of the country.
And what does it tell us about the general mood? I mean, do you think this is representative of a larger groundswell here, or is it's sort of still a relatively small sector of society that's protesting?
Well, I think that the people who are protesting right now, the protesters always represent a very small segment of society, but the people who are protesting right now represent probably around 50% of the population. The 50% of the population voted for Ahmed Shafiq in these last elections, and that group is really of a more conservative type. And I don't mean religiously conservative. I mean people who are more in favor of stability, people who'd like to see the military's power perpetuated, and those people are decidedly absent from the square. But the group that we're seeing now, the Islamists, the leftists, the liberals, the secularists, these people can command quite a large following from among the mainstream Egyptian population, the types of people who, for whatever reason, don't tend to go down to the square, don't tend to press their demands very loudly.